Are you travelling much before Christmas, or a bit of a chill one?
A bit of Italy next week.
Okay. Rome?
Pisa.
Oh, lovely.
Milan,
okay.
Pisa. Every country has its own innovators.
You must have your favourite place now, no?
Oh, yes. I have favourite place, but they relate more to me as
Personal.
a human.
Rather than you as work, right? Yeah, okay, fair enough. Digital transformation has become one of the most talked about ambitions in our AEC industry. Everywhere you turn, firms are rethinking how they design, deliver and operate using new tools and technologies. But as momentum builds, so does the noise. Conversations are often dominated by buzzwords like AI, digital twins, BIM 2.0, OpenUSD and cloud. And while these ideas carry potential, they can also distract, creating complexity, inflating expectations, and moving us further away from the outcomes that really matter. This episode is about cutting through that noise. It's about digital realism, focus on what actually works in practice, what creates real value, and how we move past digital theatre to deliver meaningful change. Joining me is Alain Waha, CTO at Buro Happold, a global design and engineering consultancy firm known for its work on some of the world's most complex, sustainable and high-performing projects. Alain brings a system-thinking mindset and a clear voice that challenges the industries to stop chasing trends and start building capability that delivers and delivers at scale. This is a conversation about substance over spin and the kind of digital leadership the AEC industry really needs. So Alain, welcome to the podcast. Thank you for joining us. Have you been on one before, or?
Well, this is the first one with you, and we've had conversation, but not like this. So.
Absolutely. Well, welcome and thank you for coming on. But I thought today we could start off just getting straight into the topic, right? Our industry today is full of noise. AI, BIM 2.0, OpenUSD, digital twins, platform, cloud. All the buzzwords, I think, describe digital transformation. Now, you're known for cutting through the noise, getting back to the core of it with people and principles first. So I wanted to have an open question first, is what is digital transformation to you?
Yes, to me, it's a journey that started 30 maybe years ago, and we started applying technology and digitization to business. And I think the term comes out in 2007, 2008 out of MIT when we start thinking about how do we formalize what's success, business success through digitization, and then really understanding from first principle what was causing that. And essentially, I think it's a really beautiful definition for the technologist is to say that the marginal cost of information and of integration and of compute goes to zero. And so not the full cost, but the marginal cost. And so that means that different way of business are possible. Mm-hmm. And so the transformation is a business transformation driven by those people that dare to imagine how their business might look like in a world where communication costs have gone to zero, composable stacks are becoming more powerful every day.
Great. And when you talk about 30 years ago and where it is today, how have you seen it transform over time? Because I know for me, the industry is focusing a lot on the shiniest trend rather than some of the, I suppose, core values of what's required from a practicality point of view. So how have you seen it change over the last 30 years?
So I suppose I came to AEC in 2006, so it's not quite 30 years or 20 years yet. I think we still haven't really learned what digital transformation might do in our industry. We've really not integrated what other industries have learned. And that's possibly because the technology hasn't been ready.
Okay.
It might be because our ecosystem is really super hard and super big. And also because, we get in our industry bent out of shape by what you say, those words, those digital twins and BIM 2.0s, etc. There's lots of buzzwords where a lot of money gets behind them and try to shape those trends to their business advantage, but we don't see really a transformation of the ecosystem.
Okay. But are those buzzwords important? Now, I know that's probably a open question, but are they important? You know, because I see Buro Happold and use of using a lot of these, right? But I know you're driving more of the outcome of them. But are they important, or is it more about how
they are at a certain level important because they allow people to crystallize some concepts, and they're allowed to have a language that develops. If you say, I'm going to, help your project by driving the cost of information to zero, they go like, what? What are you going to do? And so I think it's very useful, I always go back to the analogy of music. MP3 means something for somebody. CD means something for somebody. An MP3 player or a CD player means something for someone. The digital transformation of music is Apple Music, is 1,000 songs in your pocket. It's Napster and then Spotify. It's the value chain of where the profits are being made, how the artists speak to their audience. That's the transformation. The buzzwords are, IAT 128K encoding. Should I pay more for a song, etc. So we are in this world in AEC where we're still talking very much in that CD language of BIM and IFC and IFCv4 and APS and integration, etc., digital twinning. We're talking in that language, but what is the equivalent of our 1,000 songs in your pocket, right? What is, manufactured buildings or true seamless delivery or automated project control or computer augmented design? We haven't seen that really work at scale yet. But that's what we should be talking about. And then,
do you have a vision for it out of interest? Because that's, I agree with you, is that it seems, you mentioned before how things are systemically locked, right? And I know that's part of some of your conversations, when you speak at many conferences. But do you have a vision of where it could get to?
Oh, absolutely. So first, we will manufacture building. We will get fundamentally to a point where we can predictably and efficiently deliver building with full mastery of the information. And so that's what I call manufactured buildings, and some parts will be made to order, some parts will still be crafted, but they will be then assembled into a site as a factory. And we've seen that happen whether you are, at outlier situation. If we're building an Arctic station, we don't turn up with a digger on the North Pole, right? And so we manufacture building, but Goldbeck does it, and Gropius does it, Cree does it. So manufactured building, but at scale. And I think the Construction Innovation Hub in the UK with the PDFMA approach is trending towards that.
Okay.
And so that's really interesting because then the delivery becomes predictable. And I think that's even more important than a cost reduction. In fact, we do know that we've optimized for cost reduction and productivity, but really what we need to optimize for is across the 5 value capital, sustainability, for example. And we need to also have a predictable product, because if you have a predictable product and a predictable outcome, then you can create value out of that. And so that will then be the second world where we're designing predictable intervention. They will be delivered by this manufactured delivery, predictable delivery of intervention, but then we will be starting to be able to predict outcomes and really go into a reinforcing loop of I build better outcomes. The outcomes will be close or less close to reality than predicted, or the market will have changed, and then we'll iterate.
So yourself and I had this similar conversation with Dale Sinclair around his kit of parts sort of approach as well. Now, I suppose the question is, you both share a really good vision of that's where it should go. So I suppose three-part question, I suppose, is that what's stopping us doing that today or moving quicker, and what can firms start doing now to help produce that, right? And I suppose the third part of that is, when do we actually start seeing it applied? Because I agree, we're seeing it applied in some areas, but it's not the agreed approach from the full industry right now.
Yes, I think you mentioned earlier the systemically locked ecosystem. So, we really have to understand that the world that creates our building is a real marvel of an ecosystem that works together with quite a lot of flexibility and it's a loose fit, right? And that's how it has emerged over the last 300, 400 years. And it's managed to achieve buildings that are incredible with what they do. But we are proposing that actually as the cost of managing information goes to zero and the cost of sharing information, the integration between the different parties goes to zero, there will be a moment where we can deliver building not in this loose fit way, but in a fully orchestrated way. And so, for example, the kit of part is just a tiny observation. So kit of part, what we really mean is the means and method, what the supply chain can do and will do is represented digitally. Let's call that the kit of part or kit of rule. And then the designer, instead of designing with very limited view of the supply chain and constructability, have already this information and they design around it.
Right.
And so the best way to explain that, the shift is, building out of Lego. Ultimately, you can create a Lego brick in any material and in any shape and in any color you want. And it can have any function, as you know, Lego Technic, whatever. Yeah. And so the only thing that is known is that they come together. And so if you have a declared system, the designer that says, I'm a Lego designer, you have to design the Death Star, right, I'll build the Death Star. You've probably gone back to the factory and say, guys, my Death Star, it's got some vulnerabilities here and I need this extra piece, otherwise, the starfighter is going to come in, and clearly didn't go to the building and to the factory. So, we know what happens to the Death Star. But so really understanding that there's a shift. I design how I make, and then I design what I make, and those two things are glued together. Now, it's impossible to do that, but to the simplest system without technology.
Yeah.
What we should be looking at is, now that we have incredibly powerful technology, why don't we try to set up our supply chain that way? And that is really the opportunity we're looking after and looking for. And there will be, configure to order, manufacturer order, standard parts. I mean, you want to declare your systems to be container, fine, suit yourself. It's not going to be really interesting. You say, I don't declare the system at all and will use trades. That's also fine, and that's what we have now. But then somewhere in the middle, you're having people like, as I mentioned, Goldbeck or Cree, that are declaring their systems and say to the customer, look, if you design for my system, the building is going to come out in 12 days. Really? Yes. Like, no ifs, no buts. Yeah, but I don't like your building. Then they go 2 years, literally, 2 years around architects, PMCs, engineers. They design them something they can't afford, can't achieve financial close, etc. And eventually come back to Goldbeck, and Goldbeck says, so we knew you would be back. Actually, you're a bit quicker than the last one. It only took you 2 years to figure out you can't achieve financial close and get the building that's as valuable as the one we can create out of our system. So then they sign and the systems get delivered.
So this is going to be quite important because I think I've spoke about this before, but by 2060, our population is going to be well over 10 billion, right? And at that point, we're having to build faster, quicker, more sustainable than we ever had to. And this work back system that you've just sort of approached, rather than starting from the front, working back, how do we get there? Is there a method to it? Is Buro Happold doing something secret? You don't have to give away your secret sauce today. How do we get there? Is it changed to BIM processes? What has to happen?
It's bigger than Buro Happold, but obviously Buro Happold is very interested. I think anybody that is interested in a better built environment will want to examine the means and method and see where technology might enable that. That's very clear. And so, you have to go to the places that you describe that are going to have new cities, be it India, be it Africa, be it the GCC, where we need to build at scale, at speed, and we don't want to do it the old way because that burns the planet. So what can Buro Happold contribute to that? Well, certainly, as far as Buro Happold, that's core of mission. So the purpose of Buro Happold is to instantiate design better built environment, and then link into those type of supply chain and says, right, let's help you or tell us how you represent the supply chain and what you can make, and we will design computationally around it. And so we build computational systems that allow design to be constrained by the means and methods. Yeah.
And the part of this work back process and building smart, we had Andrew Victor on last time who talked about smart cities and some digital design. I think you guys know each other as well, which is great. A lot of it, he said, we need to learn a lot of data and what we're doing in cities today, what's worked, what's not worked. So like the places you mentioned around India, Africa, etc., so we can build the future cities faster but also smarter in a sense. How much is that a requirement, do you think?
It's an essential requirement, right?
Okay.
So we were talking about the means and method and designing for means and method, which is manufactured building, manufactured cities. More like terraforming, like in Westworld. The other part where the designers then get really excited is, okay, we're going to be able to do terraforming. Let's therefore design the gameplay. And gameplay at district level, city level, etc. When we design a school, we should be designing for educational outcomes. When we design commercial real estate floor plates, we should be designing for great interaction, great meetings, great workplace that you want to come and work at. And so closing the loop on data is essential to that. Whether you do it at a city scale, and it's called a smart city, or you're doing it at the building scale, it's phenomenally powerful. I think Daniel Davis demonstrated this all these years back at WeWork on how they data mined what people liked and didn't like, and then they built more what the people liked, right? And so it's really interesting to have that feedback loop. Every hotel room, at the end of the night, whether the person had a good night's sleep or not. Make them vote, and then design more of those that have good night's sleep and less of those and you get data at scale and closing the loop, and then you'll be able to design for performative outcomes. It's central to what the designer wants to do.
How difficult is it to get to this data? And talking about data, which is, I call the plumbing of a lot of this, I find not just getting it, but also rationalising a lot of that data to actually make it useful. So I'd love to hear your view on data in its own concept, really.
I think it is at the same time hard and complex and difficult.
Okay.
So if
all
I
the positive words.
if I decompose, but we must do it. If I decompose why I said that. So first, the data is held in many different systems with many different languages, right? I mean, the O word, the ontology word, is what the data scientists would tell you, but ultimately it's different languages. And so you need to be able to translate those languages and essentially data align. And so that's hard. And I think back to, buzzword AI, one of the things that what we call AI is large language model, which were built for translation. So it's quite exciting moment. The second thing is the data is in multiple systems. So every time you have to go and make an integration, it's really, really hard and really expensive, and the ecosystem changes all the time. So hard as well. Again, the AI moment is we used to have web scraper or web robots that if you could log into a system, you could teach the robot to go and get the data out of the system. Now we've got MCP, another, great TLA, but that's really transformational, because suddenly that marginal cost of integrating and data aligning data goes to zero, which then leaves you with the one real societal question is, under what condition will you be happy to share the data so that the built environment improves? Yeah? I'm happy to share my immunization data because I know that I'm safe only if enough of the population is immunized. So I will, on a private, anonymized way, share my data. What can we share and what will we not share? At the moment, everybody's saying, no, it's mine. And data is the new oil, so it's my oil. And you say like, okay, but you understand that if we did that, and every family said, data is my oil and I'm not telling you if I'm immunized or not because it's private, we wouldn't know if we're safe. And so you say, right, okay, what can we data mine for the public good? What are we going to share so that we can collaborate? And that is a really interesting conversation that was quite theoretical until a few months even back, but UK is quite advanced with construction data trust and such things, and I think that's going to be the breakthrough.
Do you think we'll ever get to a point where the industry almost has that common data environment where we're sharing elements like that?
So I have to be really careful about words there. Common data environment for a project, that's a reserved word. And I think we have to reserve it for what the ISO wants it to be reserved, right? But an ecosystem, a way to share data across all the parties, I think that's the Center of Digital Build Britain wanted to call that the National Digital Twin. Maybe that was too obscure. But let's say that at some level, yes, we will see that people are going to understand the equation. If I come and share the data, then I will get more benefit, and I'm not breaking any GDPR or I'm not taking any risks. And we saw, for example, it's really interesting, in the Nordics, they have a different cultural approach to collaboration. And they, for example, understood that sharing staff and gang availability across a industry platform would derive benefits for all. Because what we know predictably on a project is that things move. Now, if I've created a project plan and I've contracted every gang to come on a given day, if my program slips, I'm thought of, I've got people I don't need, and then later on my project stopped because I don't have anything. Make that pool of data available across the industry, across the local ecosystem, and then there is a visibility and some rules around what is now available. Maybe somebody else can replan because they've got these people available, and then they become available to you when you need them finally, because nothing goes according to plan. That was proven to work. We're seeing the same situation happen in Chicago with early work platforms. So I think it's gonna gradually evolve towards that.
I wanted to talk about platform as a buzzword. And in my eyes, a true platform is unified workflows, common data environments, as you've just talked about, putting that in its own area, and support sort of modular integration. So when I use the buzzword platform, I mean, it'd be interesting how close are we to that vision today? Either with yourself or what you're hearing throughout the industry?
A platform, again, has many definitions, and there's business platforms, there's supply chain platforms, there are digital platforms, there are product platforms. So it's a really interesting word in itself, and I think the UK is a world leader in defining those differences and trying to use the features of platforms to redefine or find a way to transform the industry. So yes, a very interesting word.
Yeah. But all them platforms, as you said, in that segregated way, need to start talking to each other a little bit better. So a singular platform. Or do you disagree with that?
I think we will have an internet of platforms, and
okay.
And again, we're not going to have the one unified theory of AEC in the same way as there isn't a unified theory of physics. We're going to need to create different emergent platforms. But I think there are a couple of platforms that we in our world have lived through without knowing they were platforms and how powerful they were, right? So, for example, the platform of all platform is a phone. It's really interesting that once we wanted to really make a composable system for as many use cases as possible, then we had somebody that says, I'll give you the window into a platform. I will orchestrate that platform. Remember that the iPhone, to be specific, or Android, they were the son of or daughters of people that were building a consistent UX. And so you needed to decouple the UX from the silicon and the software, and everybody that built software for the Mac had to follow the platform rule and the platform governance, and that was taken forward into the platform of the app platform in our phones. And so there's a very rigorous governance over what the app can and cannot do, who approves and disapproves the apps, who assures the technical integrity of the apps. So it's really interesting indeed to think about what might be possible in a world where, instead of being in a dominant BlackBerry kind of world where it's mine and then there's the other BlackBerry, it's mine. This is the classic Procore versus Autodesk ACC kind of battle. You say, no, let's move all the way to Android. And then let's have a robust governance so that these things interoperate and are composable. And then suddenly you say, look, millions of workers, they're all going to have one choice. They'll all have a different way of solving the problem. They all have different workflow pains, priorities. And so let them choose their workflow of choice, their app, and then after that, make it compose. And I think that's a really interesting moment for industry if we could get there.
And once it get open, do you think we'll get there? Because there's a lot of, just pick it up, is we should be designing, we should be doing this. Hopefully we can get there. Do you think we're years away from getting to a...
So we know that, big tech is interested in that scalability because it's the application of the technology. Now, was a weak driver was, the different pain points, and I do another pain point, and it moved quite slowly, so it gave the opportunity to people like Procore or Autodesk to control their platform and say, you want to integrate, you have to hop into BlackBerry, you have to follow our rules, and remember that who controls the platform sets the rule, and ultimately, if they are capitalistically owned, pays their shareholder. And so that's where we've been. With AI, suddenly there are many, many more pain points amenable, many, many workflows that become appable, and you might even call that an agent. And then it creates an interesting moment for those BlackBerry platforms to say, do we die like BlackBerry, or do we survive like Android? The choice is now, I think.
AI in its own topic. I mean, I mentioned this on one of the other books. There's like 1,700 apps now, all the different platforms in the background, but open to our industry. AI seems to be one of those things that a lot of people are playing with, if I'm honest. They're trying to see what AI can do rather than, I suppose, a business virtual approach, what you're trying to achieve, and then applying AI to that in that system. Why do you think that is? Why do you think a lot of people are playing or trying a lot of different AI tools? Because there's so many out there, so many keep coming, but I haven't seen it being used properly in anger to drive real business results, but I'd be interested to hear your view.
I think, you put your finger on something there about there are 1,700, and you ask, questions. How is it even possible that there are 1,700, and are they working, not working? So first, there are 1,700 because we've all seen the speed at which ChatGPT at consumer level got adopted, right? And I mean, what's remarkable about OpenAI is that they've created a company the size of Alphabet in 3 years. And so, I always come back to some ground truth, even if that's all they do, and they don't go any further, they've created an Alphabet in 3 years. That's a phenomenal business outcome. How they got there, they created a completely novel way for human to interact with silicon and get computer to interact, right? So it's really quite fascinating. Then you say, but I'm going into the enterprise world. Well, everybody came with that experience and that belief, and the risk capital investor says, whoa, this was just consumer, and we've created one alphabet. If it was enterprise, we'll create 15 alphabets. Let's start investing, right? And so you see that capital is abundantly available for anybody that says, I'm doing AI in AEC, good, go. So 1,700 appears. Okay, now question, does it work? Is it useful? What is it for? That's interesting, right? At the moment, enterprise is hard anyway. And second, AEC is harder. So enterprise is hard because, the trivial gets switched on quite quickly. It's embedded in the existing tools. Now, we probably have something transcribing, summarizing, and it sends me an email at the end, right? Okay, it's good. I mean, it's miraculous. Need to check it a little bit, but it's going to give us time back, which is what's there not to like. And I could even have prepared for this podcast by asking Gemini to do something for me. Well, as you see, I'm here with my pen. The enterprise then says, well, but what do I do? What's my business, right? And so Buro Happold, our business, is to do projects for our clients where they buy our engineering and our talent. Now, then you ask the question, will AI help me run projects? Well, ChatGPT won't. It's not built for that. It's a next token word predictor. It does not understand the concept of RFI. So you really need to think about what the thing is built for and what you want it to do. And then engineering, that's another world altogether. So if we look at the world of projects first, what works really quickly and very effectively is contracts and bidding. Why? It's a world of word. It's a world where knowledge is explicit. So I can ingest the knowledge. If, like Buro Happold, we have a few commercial lawyers, but contract law is not something that we manage. You go to a company that's ingested all contract law, and then that solution, there are a few Luminance, Document Crunch, the like, and explicit knowledge, vertical domain, commercial, it works. We deployed, May Winfield at Buro Happold, you can name drop, she's never waited to innovate, and she made it work really quickly. It was awesome. And it means that all the commercial team can focus on speaking to their internal customer, talking to the customer, and everything churns away. It's fantastic.
Out of interest, did she take that initiative, or was it a business-driven initiative and then she found the AI to apply to it?
So Buro Happold mostly is bottom-up. So the role of the top is to try to drive alignment to business to business outcomes and to business strategy. Sure. So separately, there is a strategic processes. Where does Buro Happold want to do? Do we stay in Europe, or do we go to South America? Do we want to grow? Are we happy the size we are? That kind of strategy. And separately, then we might input to that and say, look, what we think you should do with AI is attract more staff, because we think that a firm that has AI in-house and where staff is encouraged to use AI and enabled to use AI is going to be a much more pleasant environment to work in, and we want to attract the best talent. So let's make the environment as pleasant as possible. And AI plays a role to that. So, our EVP is tuned to attracting exceptional talent by telling them it's an exceptional environment. AI is part of that. But then when it comes to making it work, it always has to be, are we clear what we want to do? Yeah, better built environment, so for sustainability, be curious, engage with transformational client. Great, that's what we want to do. And then they figure it out. They say, hey, Perplexity is amazing. I can give it these questions, configure this space, and then I can start writing better proposal or answer my clients better. Great. And then once 2 or 3 people have figured that out, says, wow, does this scale? Yes, let's now put our machinery in place to scale what the teams
adopt it
have adopted. So in the case of May Winfield, always interested. What's the art of the possible? She leads digital risk, so she knows what's out there. She keeps an eye, and she said, right, my department's going to use AI, and then she, found what it was, worked with IT, worked with the team, and scaled it, and that's what we want to repeat 500 times.
Yeah, that's awesome that you give that flexibility and that bottom-up approach. I think a lot of people are, a lot of discussions I'm in is, does the business have to set the demand, and then we look at AI steering committees, or do you do bottom-up? I know, like you just mentioned there, your bottom-up approach, Zaha do that very similar as well, right?
From the very beginning, in fact, that's, when I came to Buro Happold in 2014, their question is, what should we do with BIM, or we want to get serious to BIM. And I say, it's not BIM, it's digital transformation, number one. And then your model, you have to figure out your change model. And in the environment of Buro Happold, the change model is bottom-up, continuous innovation and excitement, and then aligning that then to a top-down mandate and prioritization. And say, guys, look, we understand we could do all these things, but do we agree that we're going to do these three well, and then we'll take the fourth one, and then we'll take the fifth one? Otherwise, it'd be a flea circus. And that's a very simple implementation strategy.
Yeah, I bang on about your top three initiatives to nearly every key stakeholder I talk to, because I think it's important. But you mentioned a topic there around talent. Inspiring talent to join Buro Happold. How much do you feel it's important? The buzzwords, BIM 2.0, digital twins, AI. This is all we're doing. How important is it for companies to showcase they're doing it to ensure talent arrives? And do you feel that a lot of companies feel pressure to show that they're doing the latest and greatest? We talked about Omniverse and OpenUSD, all the great things that people want to come to, more buzzwords. Is that important for talent acquisition?
In our metrics, not at all. What really matters is culture, and culture is defined by, for example, what you can't do. And so if you're allowed to do pretty much everything that is safe, that's a fantastic innovation and adoption culture. So we have a culture of believing in technology for a purpose, and it has to be for our clients, for the built environment, and for the people that work at Buro Happold. That's the culture, and everything else, we talk very little about it. What do I want to talk about BIM? We're not a BIM company. We're an engineering company that wants to intervene and bring the engineering mind to think through what might be possible here, and technology just follows, right? And some say, oh well, it's interesting because now these computer things are so much more powerful. We could approach it differently, right? And then manufactured building emerged from that, and I think that's a really healthy culture. So I would want to avoid talking in gobbledygook.
Gobbledygook and focus on culture, right? I like it.
Culture and the human. I think that we were talking a little bit earlier around where does Buro Happold sit at that conversation, especially where the marketeers have done such a brilliant job at telling us that the jobs are going to disappear and all that. Maybe I'll live to regret, but fundamentally, it's the built environment is built for humans by human. It's a human pursuit, and so at the center, we want to design for the humans, understand what they experience, etc., and then leverage technology, mobilize technology to augment ourselves and to achieve extraordinary results. And so, when we digitize, we say digitize to humanize, because ultimately the purpose is to be more human in the way we work and in the built environment that we create.
I know you talk a lot about human should be at the core, right? And that should be the foundation. Do you feel the industry's lost a bit of its way with that, really focusing on more of the stats and outputs and the data that's all showing that it's more sustainable and this and that, rather than keeping human at the core? Do you feel like we've lost our way a bit?
It's I don't know if we say lost our way. That's not for me to say, but I think RIBA published a number of publications, and one had, at its core theme, the financialization of real estate and the built environment. And I think that ultimately we understand how to drive efficiencies and how to do better and how to orchestrate, and we contract things. And so that financialization, ultimately, if we think about first principle, what's the stock market down the road there? It's allocating resources. And it's allocating resources on things that work and allocate resources on things that are more productive. So that's where that driver and that approach. Now, there might not be a counterpoint. If all we measure is profits, and if all we do is comply to a technical regulation, then what happens is Boeing builds supply chains that are not as resilient as they should be, and plane crash. We build buildings that crash or burn. We have to accept that relentless financialization needs a much higher level of understanding from our policymaker and our citizens to counteract that incredibly powerful financial method.
That's good. That's a really good comment. I mean, we've mentioned a bit around building quicker, more efficient, more sustainable, and I had a comment on this for last time. I had Mareed on the podcast last time, who knows you very well, obviously works at Buro Happold and now at Grimshaw. And I pose this question as, BIM promised that 12, 13 years ago when it started to come in, and now we're seeing the future of BIM, or BIM 2.0, and digital twins starting to come into play. And I asked the question is, it promised a lot of things to build quicker, more efficient, and more sustainable, but we actually haven't seen those results in full. Do you think we're going to get there with the latest BIM 2.0 promises and digital twins and all that sort of stuff, or do you feel like it's more promises without outcome?
Look, I think that the buzzwords not going to get us there, that's for sure. And I think we have to understand what, a bit of history, right? So BIM was first coined by actually Robert Age here at UCL around design computation. It didn't try to solve the world's the world's ills. It just asked the question, in a world of computer, might we rethink how we design and construct buildings, and go towards a more computed building design, and if we were going to do that, we'd have to go towards a semantic description of the build logic, of the design logic, and then that would then drive, that could drive better outcomes. That's the foundational idea of BIM. Then after that, it needs to become a reality, and Georgia Tech and MIT work on it, and then we had a technology which was solid CAD modeling. Now, computer-aided drafting, CAD, was trying to do computer-aided design, but really they were doing computer-aided drafting. Then gave us a number of software, be it Sonata, be it Revit, be it Graphisoft, ArchiCAD, that allowed the human that is designing to represent and manipulate their design, what they have in their head, into a semantically rich environment. And that's the so-called BIM model. And then that was a really breakthrough. I mean, if you think about it, it's a breakthrough because you have a better representation and a better way to manipulate your design. What happens after that is pure business, right? I'm a software vendor. I sell 2D CAD. What's my opportunity to sell BIM CAD? If I sell BIM CAD, what happens? Well, I do 3x on my license. What was also beautiful for Autodesk, they were very smart, that they didn't really have a competitive product in the market, and so which one was the most competitive and bought it. And so they didn't just do 3x on the CAD license, they did 3x on the market share. So when people were making a change from 2D CAD to BIM CAD, they more often than not flipped into the Autodesk stack.
Right.
And so, that's a phenomenal business. Forget what it is, and you can hear that. You think, but how does that improve design or construction? Doesn't it? It increases the economic performance of Autodesk, and they will throw everything at it's a financial institution. They'll throw everything at making that work. And that business now, so that we really understand what's going on. That business did 1.6 billion of cash profit. It probably spent 1 billion on communicating and convincing the market of what it wants the market to do and know. I'm not saying that it shouldn't do that. That's what the business does, right? Coca-Cola spent a lot of money selling us sugar water, and Autodesk sells us a lot of time, spend a lot of money convincing people that they should move to BIM. What they mean, go to BIM CAD and subscribe to Revit, and now subscribe to ACC. It's good for business. Is it good for the UK?
Understood. So with digital twins coming in and getting more live view and running simulations of these buildings or cities, is that going to start resolving it? I
have a very narrow definition of a digital twin, because I think digital twin as a framework, as a thought, as a description, as a thing is really, really useful. But it's useful to understand how an asset works, right? Ultimately, a digital twin is not a render of a building. A digital twin is not a semantic representation of the design or what I want to build. That's not a digital twin. A digital twin is I have a physical process, or I've got a physical thing, and I'm getting data to come from it so I can understand how it's working, and then I can indeed assure that it's working well, or predict and improve its performance, or propose, plan, and simulate an intervention inside that system that I'm monitoring. So that's what a digital twin for me is. It's not a representation of the design. Sorry, that's what the engineer does day in, day out. We have design representation. We align them across multiple domains. We figure out if the facade has this geometry, this is the heat gain. That heat gain implies this kind of ventilation system, this type of plant room, this type of embedded carbon, this type of operational carbon. That's not a digital twin. It's just a simulation. And from that simulation, we design and improve and understand how we can do better with this building. Then the building goes into operation. Then you switch on the digital twin and says, I thought it was going to perform that way, and it doesn't. Thank God it doesn't, because otherwise we're living in a simulation. Yeah, the gap between simulation and reality, that's what you then, as designer, we're interested in. There are other, much more interesting use case around predictive performance. A cognitive twin actually would allow the building to operate and react and talk to the people that are using it. I don't know about you, but smart buildings don't seem very smart to me. And so you say, but why? And it says, because they don't know anything about the humans.
Yeah. And
the humans are not talking to the digital a digital representation of the human, a digital representation of the building. If they could talk, it's at the same time scary, but at the same time really interesting. I mean, I'll just give you a simple use case. I walk towards the lift, and then the lift says, Anna, you're going to the 6th floor. And says, last I looked in my agenda, I need to be on the 8th floor.
Got you. Okay.
Okay. So how smart are you?
Yeah.
You're not very smart at all, as it turns out. The building should be able to, predictively adjust its cooling and heating based on what? Based on, clouds 50 kilometers up the road, and the fact that I'm down the road about to appear, right? Now, it's at the same time scary, because then, that data platform you're talking about becomes quite transparent. So how do I protect myself as a citizen, etc.? But the building suddenly could actually be smart, which would be nice.
The thing that I'm seeing a lot more of is that people are trying to integrate IoT data for that. So understand vibration, heat, temperature, wind, all the other things that can start giving more live data into that simulation from the design. How much are you seeing that? I mean, there's another part of digital twins that people are trying to do digital twins beyond just the building and infrastructure. Also, simulate where, to put cranes for fewer lifts, where to put resources for quicker construction, all these different things. But how much are you seeing that we need to use more live data to actually get the benefit of digital twins?
So a digital twin has live data. So planning the project around how many crane and simulate, that ain't digital twinning. That's just ain't planning. That's just planning in the digital domain.
Yeah.
I have a engineering representation of what I want to build, my process to build it, and then optimize it. Fine, that's great. Then you get into execution, and of course nothing goes according to plan, and that's where your digital twin tracks, right? And I think that ultimately that deterministic worldview is flawed,
right? Okay.
Because we know just because it rains, because it's windy, because people are late, because. Creating a plan and then says, when did it last go according to plan? So really what we talked about, having that loose fit and the human reacts to that loose fit. Can the human be augmented to say last time this happened, or it can look 10 degrees deeper and says, right, we can predict through simulation or either deterministic, heuristic, or through machine learning patterns, to start having a predictive twin that augments the human and says, we know what we had a plan, in fact, we did a few Monte Carlo simulation to understand the sensitivity to some parameters. Now we think we had a good starting point. Right, you put it there, and then you let it optimize, right? And that, actually, I think is a really phenomenally powerful method.
Awesome. I'm quite interested, because before construction, at the AEC industry, you also worked in aerospace and automotive. Is that right?
That's right. Yes.
Now, I used to sell to them, funny enough, in the technology world, and they've been doing machine learning a long time. They seem to be quite advanced compared to, I suppose, the AEC industry. What can we take from what they're doing or what they've done and bring it to this industry?
There isn't a direct translation. I think that's the first thing to say. We're fundamentally different. And I would start on that because it's too easy to say, we're the least digitized and we should just learn from how the others did, And I don't think we are this place where we are, the Neanderthal of the industry. And, no. It's just the hardest to digitize.
Great.
And so now let's go and understand what they learned and how their journey looked like, both at the digital level and at the business transformation level, and then try to learn from that to apply it to our industry. So one of the things that we saw for the car industry, for example, is the reversal of the information flow in supply chain. So once we had enough information and representation and had computer powerful enough to describe the supply chain of the car industry, then we could go towards a pull supply chain. Previously, the lean supply chain relied on Kanban boards and was all very manual, in fact. But then with what we call PLM system, we were able to deploy ERP and PLM systems that allowed us to fully represent the process and then start linearly optimizing it. And so those two things, reversal of the information flow and linear optimization, these are key central themes that will eventually happen. And they'll give you 30 to 40% productivity and effectiveness gain. But you have to get at them. And to get at them, you have to have a connected system, and that's hard.
Yeah, and I think when I was with Niels on the first podcast, he mentioned that if you look at an automotive budget, which is very different, they design a bike or a car, and that can create 800 million in a architecture world. 5 million to up to 50, 60 million, right? It's not the same commercial output and value. So you also have to take that into your transformation topics.
That's right. And, ultimately, even if AEC firms might be big, the project is made up of many small firms across a period of 18 months, let's say, that need to connect and then exchange data and then disconnect and all agree on. We don't do that in any other business domains. And so, if you're investing in an ERP into a car company, it's a 30 years commitment. And then you onboard 1 or 2 suppliers a year, and then they're going to be your supplier for 10, 20, 30 years. We need to onboard like 100 suppliers in 3 weeks, and they'll stand there for 2 months. I mean, it says like, and how much do you spend on your supply integration? Oh, well, we do a requirements definition, then a technical definition, then we do a build, then we do a sandbox test, UAT, and then we deploy into live, and then we do an iteration around that. It takes about 6 months, and it costs, $500,000. And you go, guys, we've got $5 and 2 days. And I think once you explain it, I think
it's a really good way to explain, actually. Yeah. 2
really important things come to mind. The first one is an incredible admiration for the construction supply chain. Because if you ask a car company to make a car with the technologies that we use to make these incredibly complex buildings, they couldn't. We can. We do it. They can't, right? So first thing. The second thing is, coming back to the beginning, you said, what's digital transformation? If you say digital transformation is the marginal cost of information and integration going to 0, then suddenly you say, but Anna, it cost $500,000 and we're doing digital transformation, and every 18 months it halves. So in 1995, it was $500,000. How much is it by now? And you say, well, we're getting flipping close to being the $5 and 2 days we need it to be. And that day, when it really does work, then everything you saw in 1995 in the car industry is going to happen to our industry. Wow. And it's going to flip on a dime.
That's really good. I mean, that's a good time to sort of ask you, I suppose the final question is that you spent a lot, we talked about a lot of topics today, and we've sort of, I suppose, talked beyond some of the buzzwords in a sense, but looking forward at digital transformation, and especially in the next 3, 5, maybe 10 years, I suppose, what excites you most? And either excites, or where do you feel passionately where we need to get to?
I think I mentioned it earlier, right? We must get to a predictable delivery of buildings and infrastructure. And the digital layer has a part to play into that, because it allows to manipulate, manage the information, orchestrate the supply chain in a completely novel way. And if we get there, and I think we will get there in the next 5 to 10 years or sooner, then we will be able to pursue what you hinted at in terms of creating the cities we need quickly. We will be able to optimize for sustainability, for material consumptions, etc. So I think that's a really important, really important, first step. After that, I think it's going to need to be even deeper than that, and that's why Buro Happold talks about humanize. Ultimately, we've configured our industry around creating more. So infrastructure we struggle to deliver because the impact it has on the built environment as it stands. So if I put the metro system or I put an HS2 in, it's unpredictable, ruins politicians' life, etc. So you have a problem there. But more importantly, we are in a world where more is more rather than less is more. What I mean by that is all real estate is sold per square foot. And so the only way to make more money in real estate is to sell more concrete. And that's the largest commodity on earth, is real estate. And so imagine you flipped it to a point where at last I looked, a Rolls Royce is not 100 times bigger than a Toyota. you can sell value.
Yeah,
and so spaces that delight and consume less. I wouldn't go as far as van life, but really think about what we might be able to achieve in terms of different urbanism, a much more parsimonious way of building, creating, and using space. I think it's going to be breakthrough for what we need to achieve, which is the space is for 10 billion people without burning the planet.
Well, Alan, time's flown. I'm surprised how quickly it's gone, but thank you for joining us today. Really, really appreciate it. You made me quite excited, and hopefully we can get there in that view in the next 5 to 10 years, because we've got a big task as an industry, and we need to try and move beyond these silos as we keep talking. But no, thank you very much for joining us today, and look forward to the future with yourself and Buro Happold.
Thank you very much.
What we've heard today is a reminder that progress in the AEC industry doesn't come from louder language or chasing the latest trend. It comes from clarity, alignment, and action. This episode challenged us to rethink what digital transformation really means, not as a marketing term, but as a strategic shift in how we deliver buildings, infrastructure, and outcomes. We explored the gap between the hype and the reality, and the importance of platforms that truly integrate workflows, and why systems thinking and interoperability are becoming essential to how we work. It also highlighted the need for a stronger digital leadership that is willing to ask harder questions, simplify complexity, and focus on delivering long-term value, not just short-term wins. And that's exactly what the AEC Innovators Circle exists to do, to create a space for open, honest conversations with the people and ideas shaping the future of the architecture, engineering, and construction industry. If this episode helped you clarify your thinking or raise questions you'll take back to your team, follow the AEC Innovators Circle, where we speak to the boldest minds in the industry. Thank you for listening. I'm your host, Karl Smith. We'll see you next time.